Hello, everyone. Ben, you look different tonight.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the Unqualified Film Bros podcast, Max. We mourned your streak
I
last
know, I
week,
know, I know. We're starting one
um,
tonight.
starting a new
Um,
one tonight. I,
yes,
since Ben is not here, I have the longest active streak on the pod, and it's not close. I got about a 2.5 month head start on both of you now.
you do.
Because I think it was, what was the last episode I missed? Was it 28 years later? Because that was several months ago. That was January.
Yeah, it might have been because you did Bone Temple. So,
No, I didn't do Bone Temple.
oh, you
I
did.
was
Oh,
out of I was out
then
of
it
town
was
that week.
Bone Temple.
Um, yeah, I'm sorry, everyone. I promise that we're gonna actually talk about stuff tonight. Um, yeah, the last one I missed was 28 years later, the Bone Temple, which
Yeah,
was January. So I've got about a 3.5 month head start
there you go. Well, look,
on my streak.
guys, there you go. We do our job. Um, yeah, I'll leave it at that. We do our job.
Yeah,
It's
we do
important.
our
Yeah,
jobs.
it's the most important thing.
And as Ben is proving tonight, we don't all have to be on every episode, but what's important
It's
is we're
true.
bringing you content every week. You're
Hmm.
getting our thoughts, you're hearing what we think about movies, and that's why we do what we do. That's why we love this.
Exactly.
So with that being said, let's talk about a TV show. No, just kidding. We're going to start with a movie and then get into a TV show briefly. As you can tell by the episode name, which has not been named as of the time of this recording, but we're already planning it out for when we post it. Um, we are starting with a legacy sequel 20 years in the making. Meryl Streep, Anne Hathaway, Stanley Tucci, and Emily Blunt in The Devil Wears Prada 2. Alex, what'd you think?
As legacy sequels go, I found this one to be quite enjoyable, actually. I think it hit enough of the right notes of nostalgia. To be fair, I rewatched the 2006 original film uh just a few days ago, and so it was fresh in my mind, and so a lot of the references that came back in Devil Wears Prada 2 were fresh in my mind, which was always nice. Not a necessity by any means, but it was nice to be in the know for sure. But we've talked about some pretty brutal legacy sequels on this podcast.
Yeah,
We've talked about some pretty good ones.
this is
Um,
also true.
yeah, I think this one, in terms of for that category by itself, is honestly at the higher end for me. It it is a very, I think, polarized scale. There's not a lot in the mediocre range. It's more really great or kind of bad. Kind of bad range, but um yeah, a lot of repeat jokes, I think, from the original film, which maybe slowed it down a little bit. But overall, I think it was an appropriate modernization of what this world might look like in 2026 or 20 years later. Um, and I think that that served it well, that it didn't get bogged down in trying to explain some sort of abstract concept that we wouldn't necessarily latch onto. The death of journalism, or the idea of the death of journalism, is very relevant to our times. And so I think that that helped keep it fresh, at least throughout the runtime. But yeah, overall, I thought it was quite enjoyable.
Yeah. There's nothing really to dislike here except for the color grading.
Yeah,
Um,
shame.
there's no reason for a movie about the fashion industry to look like a Capital One commercial.
Yeah.
I think the absence of color and I a large part of me wants to blame John Chu for this after what he did to Wicked. Um, but really just all movies now, not all movies, but very
Way
many
too many.
movies
Way too
that
many.
are
Because,
that are set in a world of realism
yeah.
and Oz, the most colorful world in the history of fiction, um, all having this color grading problem in modern cinema,
I'll
where
note that In
it's
the Heights did not look like Wicked did in terms of grading.
true.
Like
True. Credit
he is able to do it. Crazy Rich
credit
Asians,
where it's
he's
due.
able to do it, right? So, it's not
As
lack
long
of
as
ability here.
as long as he doesn't drop the color for if he gets Top Gun 3.
Mhm.
Anyway, I digress. He does not direct this movie. Um, yeah, nothing to dislike here except the color grading. I feel like this, as legacy sequels go, the one to compare it to most, Top Gun Maverick, I think, not in terms of style or plot or really anything, maybe cultural relevance. Um, but it doesn't have to be this legacy narrative, I think. I think what we get, and that's what we get in Top Gun Maverick. In this film, Devil Wears Prada 2, we don't have to have another fashion adventure with Andy and Miranda and everyone else. This is very much a let's check in on the characters 20 years later. Let's see what their lives have become, what they're up to, how they all
Yeah.
still connect to each other. And I thought that that was really, really well done. I thought the way that Andy is brought back into Miranda's life and brought back to Runway was really organic. It felt real, felt like that would really happen. Obviously, with BJ Novak's character, we knew how that would all play into effect. And of course, the Tooch playing his role as well, um, role in getting the whole gang back together. Um, yeah, I think I enjoyed the first film more. I just saw it for the first time a month ago. So, like you just said, Max, it was all very fresh in mind, the references that they were making, the right bits of nostalgia, like music playing as we see our main characters walking through a space and then somebody crosses in front and suddenly they're wearing a different outfit and then somebody crosses in front and then they're in a different outfit and they go into a different room and they're wearing a different outfit. Like that was
And
one
it's
of my
so
favorite.
good, and we
It's
eat it up
so
every
good
single time.
every
It's
single
so good.
time. It's so
Yeah.
well done. And by the way, they eat in every single one of those outfits.
Yeah.
Everybody here, beyond the fact that none of them has aged in 20 years,
Concerning. They
they
did look a
all
little
look,
older. They did. You could tell some honestly, Meryl Streep didn't really look that much older, but it's Meryl Streep, so
yeah. There was one shot in the offices at Runway when Andy is walking by outside of Miranda's office, and there's a shot from Miranda's, like an OTS shot from Miranda's perspective, looking out into the bullpen of Runway, and there's Andy walking by, and I swear Anne Hathaway looked exactly as she did in 2006. Like they could have pulled a shot of Andy walking past Miranda's office from the original film and put it there, and it would have looked the exact same.
maybe
Anne
they
Hathaway
did.
is not aged at all.
Maybe they did. You never know. Movie magic.
Yeah. Um, so when this movie does decide to have a plot, which is pretty much exclusively the last 40 minutes of a 2 hour movie, which we can talk about the pacing in a minute. That's another issue. Not terrible pacing wise. Just want to get ahead of that, but it's something to talk about. Anyway, when this movie decides to story, uh, it shifts the Andy Emily rivalry, quasi rivalry from the first film, to an Emily Miranda rivalry.
Yep.
And I thought, personally, just in my own viewing experience, I thought that it allowed us to see a lot more from Emily Blunt. as a character or as an actor playing Emily, in that we could see 20 years of resentment coming through, more than 20 years of resentment coming through, and really advancing that character from being kind of one-dimensional in the first film. She had her moments. Very, very funny character in the first film. Um, a cube of cheese is one of my favorite lines, but which I also think was ad-libbed. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that line was ad-libbed.
I have no clue.
But anyway, I thought Emily Blunt was the absolute star of the third act of this film, just from how she was able to give such a refreshing, how she was able to refresh, rather, the character in a way that felt really real to the world.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I think I think she was a really, obviously we don't really need a showcase of Emily Blunt. We see her shine and
We loved to see her.
yeah, we love Emily Blunt on this podcast, but she could shine. She's shown in Jungle Cruise for what, for all I care, right? Like
Yeah.
she's just great in every role that she takes on, and I think you're absolutely right that this was a her she was the standout in the third act just because it did take I guess the majority of the screen time and the plot
Well, it also
was
gave her the most to
Miranda.
do.
Yeah, exactly. It makes sense. It's like a what if Nigel got out kind of a story of, what might happen. I don't think he would turn on her, that he wouldn't be as vindictive or anything like that, but you kind of get the idea of like, here's what could happen when people get out from underneath Miranda, and kind of start to spread their own wings. But then, oh, the rug gets pulled out from underneath you when Miranda says, "I got you the job at Dior." Um, and there's just little parts of brilliance on Miranda's part there where um, it's not always clear that she's the 10 steps ahead that Andy likes to call her, but then in the moment where you think there's no way that she's ahead of this, she's been ahead of this for years.
Yeah,
And
I
she's
think
made a move that can set her up for some sort of success later, or at least save her from some sort of unmitigated disaster, which we thought we might be hurtling towards.
yeah, this movie definitely knows how to both of these movies definitely knows how to set up um, uncomfortable moments and potential conflicts that are then resolved by one character just having everything all figured out all along,
Mhm.
largely Miranda. But something you said a moment ago really made me think about how great of foils Emily and Andy are. And that's how you talked about what would have happened if Nigel had gotten out from under Miranda's thumb. What does happen to Emily after getting out compared with what happened to Andy getting out from under the runway umbrella is she becomes an award-winning journalist, victim of layoffs and downsizing in the industry, which is an unfortunate, very real world situation that the journalism industry is currently experiencing. So very true to life in the opening scene of this film. But Andy returns to Miranda and has this whole wave of nostalgia rush over her for what was 20 years ago, despite everything that she's experienced in the 2 decades in between. While not Emily, when Andy, Miranda, and Nigel walk into Dior for that first meeting with Emily, she's also hit with the nostalgia, but it disgusts her. And
Mhm.
she's thinking, oh God, this is this group of people all together again. This is a nightmare. I must be dreaming, I think is what she actually says there.
Yeah.
And to see how the characters have divulged over the course of this time and now coming back together in this new way allows for new character dynamics and new uh maybe deep-seated traits that were under the surface in the first film that now come to the forefront here,
Mhm.
are allowed to play around.
Mhm. And we're I think well set up in the first film, right? It's not like it felt like they were shoehorning in some sort of conflict between Miranda and Emily. Um, of course, I mean, we saw Miranda mistreat everybody,
Yeah.
almost especially Emily in the first film. And
Yeah.
so there's every reason for her to be bitter and vindictive to some extent, right? And so I think that made it an easier transition from the original film and continuing those storylines into this one.
There's like a lot of new in this film too.
There was.
Um, New characters, obviously new story arcs.
Yep.
I do want to talk about the new characters for a second because we have Justin Theroux giving just a really fun, dumb, new rich guy turn in this film.
Yes.
Um, we have Kenneth Branagh, we have Lucy Liu. The new characters, obviously, we're here for the OG4. We're here to check in on Miranda and Andy and Emily and Nigel. But the world around them in this film is a lot more interesting to me than the world. I mean, you got Andy and her friend group in the first one, but we don't really see too much beyond that. Like, we don't get a lot of the outside runway life for everybody else. Here, we're seeing, oh, Miranda's got all these cameo friends in the Hamptons, Carl Anthony Towns, and everyone else
Rory
who's
McIlroy.
Rory McIlroy. Yeah. Um, we've got Emily and her new husband, who is also connected to this elusive, exclusive interview uh, that all ties together at the end of the film, which I think works really, really well.
Yeah.
Um,
Natural
but yeah,
conclusion, honestly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. What did you like particularly about the new stuff we got here?
To be honest, I like the fact that they didn't take away from what we got from the original cast characters. I think that was kind of their role is to fill in the same sort of role that they filled in the original film, but just in the background this time. We don't follow them. They're following Miranda, they're following um Andy to some extent. And I liked that they didn't take over the um the dynamics between the people that we actually care about. I think that's an easy trap to fall into, and they didn't do that. So props to them for the writing and everything and that would have been really easy, right? I think we talked about, or you mentioned the runtime and maybe the pacing and everything, and like it was a little spotty at some points, and it really could have gone off the rails by adding too much around the people that they added in, right? Like I think some of them are TikTok influencers and sort of pop culture popular actors that are more popular on social media than they are in sort of Hollywood circles. And it really could have gotten bogged down, and they did a good job of not falling into that trap.
Yeah, agreed. And I think I'm going to bring up Top Gun Maverick again because I will take any excuse to talk about one of my favorite movies of all time. Um, but what that movie does is it brings Maverick 35 years into the future, 30
Mhm.
years into the future, and surrounds him with an entirely new cast. We get a couple minutes with Val Kilmer, the late great Val Kilmer. But it's really Maverick in a new setting. And what we get in this film with a legacy sequel 20 years later is, well, it's the same cast of characters all together again in this new environment. Same environment, but new environment.
Hmm.
And I think relying on the cast chemistry, relying on the character dynamics that you established 20 years ago, you really get to let that do a lot of the lifting and carry your film where you didn't have, or you didn't need to have this full world around them that bear the brunt of the film. And I think that works to its benefit. You know what you've got in your four leads. It's a proven formula from 20 years ago. If it ain't
Hmm.
broke,
Yeah. Can you pause the recording for 1 second? Sorry.
yeah,
The cat is going crazy. I just want to make sure that he's not doing any damage. So I'll be right back.
we're going to take a brief break. We'll be right back in a
Yeah.
second. Did it work? All right. Um, so apologies for that brief pause, but it does give us a chance to move into our second uh, phase of this episode from the Devil of Runway to the Devil of Hell's Kitchen. Daredevil Born Again
Nice.
season two, thank you, wrapped up with just a phenomenal hour of television earlier this week. What do you think? It
It was great. I mean,
was so great.
yeah, it really was. I think it like I said for Devil Wears Prada 2, it hit all the beats that I kind of wanted it to. Especially knowing that there's a season three. I think if we didn't have that announcement, it probably would have felt like, okay, where do we go now? But part of me also thinks that it could have felt like an end to the show. If they didn't renew for season three, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't renew it again. But I'm glad we're getting a third season.
Make
I
10.
felt like Marvel is going all in with Daredevil. I mean, he's basically getting like with one interruption with Avengers Doomsday, we're kind of getting uninterrupted MCU Daredevil content or adjacent
Vendors and
content.
New York street level.
Yeah, for the foreseeable future. And it's something that fans have been asking for years is we get more street level heroes and reconnect with the idea that heroes are just kind of people among us, that they're not these gods and figures that are um, being propped up to be, and especially with James Gunn's DCU Chapter One literally being called Gods and Monsters, returning back to the roots of a character, especially with the importance to Marvel, like Spider-Man and sort of his rogues gallery, I think is just a nice step for Marvel. And hopefully it means that they continue to churn out projects that are as clearly filled with passion and love as things like Wonder Man and Daredevil and Fantastic Four First Steps, and even Thunderbolts to
There
a
are
certain
Thunderbolts in
extent.
there too, yeah.
That they're honestly kind of on a roll in terms of producing things that are actually quite interesting after a bit of a lull, and so this season of Daredevil continued. Whatever you think of Born Again season one, I would still argue it's up there in terms of quality. That it's still quite good, even if it's a bit uneven with the reshoots and everything. But season two really hit its stride and gets me really excited.
Yeah,
So, I mean that's really the place that I feel like I want to be, and I feel good about it.
I feel great about the
Yeah.
direction of these characters and this story. Um, I mean, you and I were talking about it last night that it feels like we're going towards a Devil in Cell Block D storyline adapted from the comics for season three, which would be awesome. Obviously, largely dependent on what happens, if anything happens, with Matt Murdock in Spider-Man Brand New Day this summer. Figuring that the Punisher One Last Kill special that's coming out last week, or next week, the special presentation on Disney Plus may play into this, may not. Frank Castle's obviously had a very significant role in Matt Murdock's story since season two of the Netflix show. But yes, I 100% agree. This episode felt like the season three finale of the Netflix show.
Yeah.
It felt like Matt and Fisk going all in, like a season finale of these characters should do. And we're getting, I think the best way that I could describe this finale is that it's the absolute best of Matt Murdock, the best of Daredevil, the best of Wilson Fisk, and the best of Kingpin.
Mhm.
And I think seeing these two actors, Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio, playing these characters that they've now inhabited for over a decade,
Mhm.
they're two characters with some of the most screen time in all of Marvel's live action history. So these actors know these characters, both sides of them, inside and out, better than probably any other Marvel actors. I'm just saying, it's really saying something.
Mhm.
But to see them be absolutely at their peak with such great writing and real unprecedented stakes for these characters. I mean, we end the season with Matt Murdock in jail, having divulged his identity to the world, this secret identity that he's kept hidden for 10 years, now liberated from keeping that secret while being in jail.
Mhm.
And Wilson Fisk, whose entire identity is being the kingpin of New York City, now in exile on an island somewhere, completely alone, cut off from Matt Murdock, who is his best sparring partner, and cut off from Vanessa, who died earlier in the season. There's no Daniel Blake anymore for
Mhm.
obvious reasons. James Wesley, great cameo this season in the flashback episode, but he's not around for years now. No Buck Cashman, no Heather. Like Fisk's completely alone for the first time, even when he was in prison in
Mhm.
season two of the original Netflix show. He was never alone. He had power. He had people that he could wield.
Yeah. And I
You know,
mean, it
so
never felt in season two like he was going to stay down for very long. And, it's not like it
season
feels
two of
like
the
he's
original
gonna,
run.
huh?
Season two of the original run.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes, yes. Um, Never felt like he was gonna stay down for too long, but here in Born Again season two, it's not like it feels like this is the end, obviously. I mean, of course, we've got the set leaks and all that stuff, so it kind of confirms it. At least he's appearing at some point. But, to try and determine what his role is in Matt's story or Daredevil's story in season three is up in the air for pretty much the first time since that we've seen Daredevil in the MCU, and that's even bringing in the fact that Kingpin Wilson Fisk has appeared in other projects outside of just the 5 seasons of Daredevil that we've gotten. You've got Hawkeye, and I believe he was an Echo. I'm assuming he
He
was an
was.
Echo.
He was an Echo.
Um, and so we've got a lot of Wilson Fisk in the MCU. 5 seasons of Daredevil, and then 2 seasons at least of other shows. So a lot of screen time, like you said, just like Matt. And so having that question mark is a big deal as the end of season as of Born Again season two wraps up. It we don't know where it can go, and that's exciting. And think it's a bit of uncharted territory for Marvel. They haven't attempted a Daredevil adaptation without Wilson Fisk in it, sort of as the forefront. And so, do they continue down that path, which I think is exciting and bold and something they should do, if you're asking me, Kevin Feige? Or do they sort of come back and bring him too much back into the fold? And I think that's going to be a balance they'll have to find over the next year as things start to get released and everything and we start to learn more about season Born Again season 3.
Yeah, I think what this season did overall leading into season three is that season one was flawed. And you and I have talked about this ad nauseum for the last year and 2 months since season one of Born Again started, which of course was right after I watched season three of the original show for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I was coming off of that high, then into something that was disjointed and clunky and still had its moments, but was largely underwhelming, I think we could say, for Born Again season one. It had that great hype moment at the end of season one where Matt was going to start building this army of defenders to take on the task force that was just getting its feet underneath it at the end of season one. Um, but it did season one didn't really get me hyped for season two the way season three of the original show got me hyped for Born Again,
Yeah.
or the way that this season gets me hyped for season three. I want it
And
to be March of 2027 so badly right now,
I do too.
just so that I can see
I do too.
where this story goes from here. I think it's exciting to see Matt Murdock and Daredevil as one person instead of two sides of the same person.
Hmm.
Now that that secret's gone,
Yeah.
I think seeing what that does to his world around him. I'm disappointed that when we had the big reveal in the courtroom, the next shot was of Heather and not of Karen, because Karen's been bearing the secret as much as Matt has for a lot longer than Heather's even been part of the story.
Hmm.
And yeah, she could just be like, yeah, my crazy ex is having an episode. But in a much more real sense, I think Karen's reaction probably would have been something I would rather have seen there. In any case, Heather is putting on the Muse mask at the end of the second season here and seeing her own face in the reflection. What
Hmm.
implications does that have? Fisk is gone. Is she part of the next administration? Is she back to practicing therapy? She's a real wild card, and Margarita Laviva has made this character stronger as she's gone on and gotten more comfortable in this world. Very excited to see her in season three.
Hmm.
Um, Buck Cashman really took a step forward this season. Artie Frushan is a wonderful performer. Love the accent, by the way. And seeing him without Fisk,
Hmm.
especially dealing with what happened with Daniel Blake.
I think
Evie
Buck's gonna
York.
be. I think
Evie
Buck's gonna
York
be
thrown into
fine.
her uncle's old office.
Yeah. Yeah. Getting the news clippings. Um, I think
Evie's
Buck will
such a
be
great
fine.
character.
He wasn't as tethered to Fisk as Daniel would have been. So I think if
Yeah.
the roles were reversed and say for whatever reason Buck needed to be taken care of and Daniel did it, I think if we end up with the same outcome at the end of season two, but Daniel's alive and it's Buck that's dead, we probably don't get as much. But I
It's a
because I think Buck
fascinating
has
concept.
shown that he functions without Fisk. Um, like we
Yeah, I
got
mean,
that
we
in the
saw in the
flashback.
flashback episode.
Yeah, and he's more than capable of finding dirty someone else's dirty work to do. Um, yeah, I think the more I think about these two seasons together, Born Again, the more I think that season one really was more of a soft reboot than we probably gave it credit for when it first aired. That there was an expectation that it was gonna be
Season 4.
season four. And that was kind of what it felt like it was billed as, to be honest. It's not
Yeah.
like it felt like it was, oh, this is a new thing, even though it's a number of years later or anything like that. I do think that these two seasons together are a better product together than they are as standalone seasons,
And that was
you
the
know?
original plan,
And
was
it
to do
was.
one 18 episode season.
Exactly. And so it like there was gonna be some slowness, I think, that we felt in season one, especially, right? Like season two, I don't think I felt the same
There's
level
no
of,
breathing room. It was all really
yeah.
tight.
It was breakneck pace for sure. Um a- and who knows, maybe if they had just given us a regular 13 episode season like we got with Netflix and sort of split the difference ish between what, 9 and 8, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, that we get more of a cohesive story and that we don't run into those problems. But that's all what ifs. That's all maybe what could have been. What we have right now, I think, are two seasons that, if watched back to back and binged, are going to be seen as much stronger products than having to watch 9 episodes of kind of a disjointed season with all the reshoots and all the production issues that they went through, and then go into a much tighter season two, to their credit, much, much tighter. But still having had to wait a year to
yeah,
watch that, and then going to season three, right? Like it's a little different because at the end of season two, you kind of feel like you have a conclusion of the story. So it doesn't feel like you're left waiting for the same kind of thing. Even the original show, the show didn't leave cliffhangers to that extent
right.
where it felt like, wow, absolutely nothing was resolved. Like, there's big stuff at the end of the original season two with Elektra and all that and everything, but it felt like it could end there. It didn't feel like we had to go on.
Yeah,
Here with season one of Born Again, it's like, okay, if you just give us that, then why would you even make it?
right.
Um,
What was the point?
yeah, I don't
The
feel that
point
way
was,
after season two and having both of these seasons, is my point, is that together they are much stronger.
and I will give season 2 a lot more credit for getting right one thing when it comes to uh, balancing character presence in the story,
Mm,
and that is having Deborah Ann Woll in every episode. Karen Page is as essential to Matt Murdock's story as Foggy Nelson.
mm,
And yes, Eldon Henson, his presence has been greatly missed in this show in both seasons. Loved the flashback episode where he actually got to be a part of it and have that chemistry.
mhm,
Eldon Henson and Charlie Cox chemistry, that was so crucial to the initial show's run. Uh, the show misses something without Foggy and Karen, especially in season 1 of this show,
mhm,
um, or this rebirth. Uh, but what it gains from having Matt and Karen together for this whole season
mhm,
is that je ne sais quoi from the original show.
mhm,
Having the two of them together, having a greater emphasis on Vanessa and Fisk, like we saw in the initial show, really honing in on the characters that we knew 10 years ago, while also fleshing out the characters you introduced last year,
yep.
combined to make this season a much, much stronger product.
Completely agree. And, I think to your point about introducing new characters, one criticism that we've talked about before is that it kind of feels like there was too much, and I think that that is a product of them trying to ride the line between reboot and a completely new show, and they never fully committed to doing
I
just a new show with the same core cast of characters that play Matt Murdock, Foggy Nelson, Karen Page, Wilson Fisk, and Vanessa Fisk. Like those are the five that you kind of need to do a Daredevil story if you're going to do it this way. They have them, but then you don't bring in guys like Brett Mahoney, from the original series. You bring in Cherry to replace him essentially, and then you bring him back in the later episodes of season Born Again season two, and so they never quite committed, and I think that's my main criticism of Born Again is that it never has that singular identity that Daredevil Netflix did have, which was this dark, gritty, street level hero, Daredevil, man without fear. We're doing comic book stuff. Like that's what we're doing. Like this felt, for as good as it is, it still felt like a Marvel production of Daredevil, if that makes sense. It didn't feel like a Daredevil story presented by Marvel. Um, and I think that's an important distinction. And it's
It
an
is.
important critique of the show, whether you agree or disagree. I think it is, for me, is a bit of a downfall. As good as as much as I liked Daredevil, Born Again, and both seasons. It it just never committed, and I think that was its fatal flaw for me, that it didn't fully trust the audience that's coming into the new show to understand who these people are without having to be essentially reintroduced to new versions of these characters for no particular reason. Like, yes, we would get a new James Wesley, of course, right? He's dead. Sorry. Can't bring him back. But we didn't need a Cherry as much as I liked him. We didn't
We didn't need a
need,
Cherry. We didn't need a Buck. We didn't need.
no, I mean, and
We
there
didn't
were
need
great
Heather. We
characters
didn't need
for
Kirsten.
the show that they presented, right? I think
Yeah,
they they did exactly what they were supposed to do and written and designed to do, which is support Daredevil and Matt in his endeavors as a vigilante. Um, but we just already had those characters, and so if they had just believed in us to remember them or believed in our love of the original show, that we'd either go back and watch it or at least read summaries of it and bring in these characters just again, and continue to showcase them and continue to give those great performances their flowers for what they were, which is what brought the show to life in the original Netflix series. We talk about the action sequences and the hallway fight scenes, and you can talk about the choreography and anything from sun up to sundown. But
we
when
have.
you really look at the original show, the most interesting parts of it weren't that. It was the rooftop conversations, like between Frank and
I
Matt
still go back
in
to
season
early
two.
season two.
It's between Agent Nadeem and his camcorder
R.I.P.
as he does his deathbed confession. It's those kinds of moments where we've lived with these characters for a season, and even if we don't love them, fully invested in their story, regardless of what we think of them personally. And we don't quite get that same depth in this show, in these
Yeah.
two seasons. It really is a showcase of Matt, Karen, Fisk, and Vanessa. It really is a focus on that.
And
And
that's why those four characters in this version of the show feel so much more fleshed out than
yeah,
everyone else is because they
yeah.
are. We've
And
gotten to know them.
and the problem is that we don't really need that. We know who they are. It just it at certain points it felt repetitive. Um, and not that I didn't like it. It just
I see what you're saying.
we've done it before. We've done 3 seasons of this. It's not plus She-Hulk plus Hawkeye plus Echo, where we've seen iterations of these characters where we know who they are. We know how they act, what they're gonna do. We know them inside and out, essentially. Um, it just would have been nice to get a little bit of trust back, I think.
And maybe they're
To,
saving that for season 3 when they put Fisk still on
maybe,
an island and Matt in
maybe.
prison.
And this is much more of an arc across 3 seasons than the Netflix show, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still excellent.
Season,
Still really liked
yeah.
it. I mean,
I
this is,
I
it sounds harsh, but it's still pretty nitpicky.
the finale was a top 5 episode of Daredevil
And it's pretty great. It
that
really
we've
was.
had in,
Yeah.
let's see, 50, almost 60 episodes across 5 seasons.
Yeah. Yeah.
The finale was a top 5 episode.
Mm.
So yeah,
Yeah. It's great.
I want to go back and watch season 2 again straight through. Week to week was good to
It's
keep me
hard.
thinking about it, but it was
Hard.
hard.
Yeah. But I like it. I'm still a proponent of the weekly release.
Oh,
I like it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're lucky right now. Just quick aside, you're lucky that you're getting to watch The Boys and Gen V episode to episode to episode to episode, which is what I did after season 4 of The Boys was watch the whole thing through up to that point.
Mm.
But then Gen V season 2 and now The Boys season 5, I've had to go week to week to week to week to week. And
Yep.
that's really difficult, especially after this week's episode of The Boys. But I digress. That is going to do it for this episode of the Unqualified Film Bros podcast. We will have Ben back next week, fingers crossed. We will be talking about a movie that has really surprised critics so far that I think will probably surprise us. We're talking about The Sheep Detectives.
Yes. I'm
Um,
kind of excited.
I'm pretty
I'm like
excited too.
really, I'm
I think
intrigued.
I think this is going to be another fun mystery comedy
Yeah.
on a podcast that we've done a lot of them, but this one is completely bizarre and new and
Yeah.
will be a lot of fun. So, Sheep Detectives next week. In the
Hugh
meantime,
Jackman and talking animals.
what's not to love?
Yeah.
Uh, in the meantime, you can check out The Devil Wears Prada 2 in theaters right now. It's going to lead the box office until Mandalorian and Grogu comes out, probably, which will be the better part of a month. So, check out Devil Wears Prada 2. All 17 episodes of Daredevil Born Again, as well as all 39 episodes of Daredevil, are streaming on Disney Plus. Watch all of them and let us know
Yes.
what you think. In the meantime, again, watch some good movies, Ben AI in filmmaking, and support local movie theaters. We'll see you and Ben for the Sheep Detectives next week. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.